a really fun video that the Indignants out of London put together a couple of days ago. And this is basically just for those of you who can't come out to the site physically, which you should try to because it's great. This is just kind of like a brief little tour I can take you on virtually. There is audio, but the audio is not working, but luckily I know the site, so I can do the narration. So, this is our site, yay! Site tour, Dam Line 9. So, you can see from those first few frames, it's basically an open construction area that's been fenced in. That's pretty much what it looked like when we arrived early this Tuesday morning. A group of about 30 anti-pipeline activists from the southwestern Ontario and GTA regions met nearby at about 6 o'clock, and then 6:30 we headed over to the construction site. We got there before the construction workers began their shift. The 24-hour security guard was there. We informed him that we were going to be coming onto the site. We did that. He radioed his people, and his people told the workers not to show up for work. So then we came in and we put together all this stuff that you're about to see. So this here is our kitchen tent. It's called the Dam Line 9 Cafe. It's open 24 hours. So we've got, what's Bray pointing to right now? So that's our little stove and drinking water station. Very nice, very nice. You know, dishes, lots and lots of groceries. People have been very generous with the dropping off donations of food and water. We have some semblance of organization with those little pink labels you can see in the background. What he's walking by right there is our garbage and recycling area. And now we're walking right up over to our buffet table. So basically a couple people volunteer to make a meal and then serve it on this table, and then it's buffet style, and then everybody busses and washes their own dishes. And right there he's like, oh, that's me. So this is our community garden. At this point, we just had corn, chives, mint, and Anaheim chili in, and now we have also the addition of tomatoes and an aloe plant, and there was also a bunch of stuff that got delivered first thing this morning that's not yet transplanted, but the garden is getting very exciting. We're going to have to expand, I think. Oh, off to the side you can see our little couch. We have a couch made out of sandbags, which is actually really comfy. We were playing euchre on it last night. This is our media tent. We do all of our live media from the site. That's powered by our solar panel, which they're going to show soon. Here we go. Ta-da!
Wow.
I know, right?
That is really cool.
So the solar panel is daisy-chained to a marine battery inside that bin, and then we've got an inverter rigged up to that, and then we just plug right in, and that's how we charge our laptops and our tablets and our cameras type thing. And then I think that's pretty much the video. I don't know if they'll really show anything else. Nope, that's just some sweet closing line. All right, so that's basically what the site looks like. There's a lot more tents there today. I guess loads of people have been showing up. It's a Saturday. People don't have work conflicts, which is great because we like to see as many folks as possible come out there. So I'm going to just do a little talk about, I do a lot of anti-Enbridge spiels, as is my custom. Not usually with too much of an animal rights focus. I do believe in animal protection and rights. And
do you need this anymore?
no, thank you. I'm done. Unless you want to look at my super boring Word document. Then you'd see what I was about to talk about. So I've been kind of sort of retool some of my usual talking points to center more around non-human earthlings, and so I'd love some feedback. Oh, and just a quick mention about the camp. The camp is all of our food utensils and supplies and sort of brain power is largely fueled by 3 different Food Not Bombs chapters from cities that are all located along the path of Line 9. And so our kitchen is vegan, or tries to be as vegan as possible. Sometimes we get donations from neighbors that we can't control. But all the food that we intentionally prepare and bring to the site is vegan. So this site in particular is 500 meters away from Antler River, or the so-called Thames River. This particular river is a actual crucial ecosystem for some rare species, which include the eastern spiny softshell turtle, the queen snake, the black red horse, and the Virginia opossum. I know nothing about those species of animals, but I do know that they're rare, so I certainly don't want their home to be jeopardized. This watershed, the Thames watershed, provides drinking water for, I know, more than 500,000 humans, so certainly countless other non-humans. And on a more specific note, the Antler River is crucial for drinking water, traditional fishing ceremonies, and medicines for the Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, who are currently appealing the NEB's approval of Line 9. So one of the things that we are righteously pissed off about for this particular site is that Enbridge is trying to proceed with construction for this Line 9 reversal project, while the Chippewas of the Thames are in the midst of challenging the NEB approval. Not very respectful. So Line 9 passes through every major waterway that feeds into Lake Ontario, including conservation areas and sensitive wetlands and swamps, putting all of those ecologies at risk. About Enbridge in general, because I don't want to just focus on Line 9, because Enbridge is the largest pipeline company in so-called Canada, and they have, this is an American fact, but do you know that in the States there are more miles of pipeline than there are miles of highway?
Wow.
Isn't that mind-blowing?
Where?
I'm still wrapping my head around that. Pardon me?
Well, I was just
Oh, sorry. Yeah, isn't that? Yeah, that blows my mind. But anyway, so lots and lots of pipes in the ground on this continent, and Enbridge is one of the leading villains in that enterprise. So Northern Gateway has been a hot button news item of late, and that's a really nasty project. I mean, all pipelines are, but the ecological disruption of Northern Gateway is really terrible. It would disrupt unique temperate and boreal forests and threaten the Upper Fraser, Skeena, and Kitimat watersheds, which contain some of the highest quality habitats for wild salmon and steelhead trout in this entire country. At least 6 species of wild fish use those rivers and lakes for spawning, rearing, and migrating. And tar sands contamination of these waters obviously would decimate the fish and carnivore populations in northern BC and Alberta. Of course, this means nothing to Enbridge or Stephen Harper because they are so far removed from it. And so one of the things that we are continually trying to draw links to at Dam Line 9 is that this isn't about this individual pipeline or pipelines in general. This goes back to industrial resource extraction as a whole. As as Patrice was saying earlier, this kind of mass resource extraction is the site of so much oppression and so much danger, and poses such a target point for so much intersectionality that you can link the tar sands to like everything pretty much. It's a horrendously horrific project, and we need to stop it coming at it from all angles. And it poses a threat not just in the local communities that we're often pointing to in these discussions, or even the continental communities that we're inclined to refer to as Turtle Island, for example. This is a global threat, right? And the consistent line of oppression is that those who stand to benefit the most from these projects are a very small and very privileged elite with the largest carbon footprint, and those who stand to lose and stand to sustain all of the damage and all of the harm are consistently the largest populations of oppressed people and of folks with the smallest carbon footprints. And of course, this chain of oppression extends both for humans and for non-humans. All right. So back to Kalamazoo. I don't know about the deaths, but I do know about the the animals that were reported having been recovered and needing to receive attention. More than 3,000 turtles from the Kalamazoo spill, 170 birds, and 40 mammals were, and that's just like the recovery. I'm assuming that probably more died than were recovered would be my assumption. And more recently, the Department of Natural Resources began studying the impact on fish and microinvertebrates, which are the tiny aquatic organisms that provide vital food source for fish, and both were pretty much wiped out of Talmadge Creek. That's the official quote from the DNR. Terrifying. Sorry, my points are all scattered. I was like pulling from different speaks that I've done. I'm like, where did I talk about animals here? Northern Gateway would run from the tar sands to the, oh man, this one is so, this is the kind of thing where myself and a few of my organizer friends, when we first were learning about this particular point, it just, you want to cry with frustration and just grief. So Northern Gateway, its route would run from the tar sands to a deep water port at Kitimat, which is at the head of the Douglas Channel. So an estimated 8% of BC's humpback whales feed and rear their young at the mouth of this channel, which is a designated critical habitat. Enbridge plans to build 2 ship berths and 19 tanks for oil and diluent in this channel. 220 oil tankers are expected to travel the channel each year with only the protection of a floating containment boom, which, as we've discussed, as Chloe brought up, is useless against fishermen, which is what is harvested from the tar sands. So when animal rights and environmental activists criticized Northern Gateway as a danger to humpback whales, the government responded by downgrading humpback whales from their endangered species status, which removed the requirement to protect the whale's critical habitat and nullified other general prohibitions under the Species at Risk Act. So one thing we really, really need to remember when we're challenging pipelines, in Canada in particular, in this political climate, is that we are up against like every regulatory body that is supposedly set up to safeguard Canadian citizens from the damage of pipelines and the tar sands. They're all fighting against us. This federal government has a vested interest in making sure that the tar sands succeed, and they are like doing unbelievable things to ensure that that goes through. Like, this is such an uphill struggle that we need to rally as much opposition as possible, because otherwise, like, we're just gonna get steamrollered. But keep fighting, cheerful, cheerful. You know, Enbridge, as a company, continues to lack legally required backup power and emergency shutoff buttons at the majority of their pumping stations across Canada. The majority of leaks take place at pumping stations, so good idea to have emergency shutoffs there. And their leak detection systems have taken as long as 17 hours to register an active spill. Their website states, so the Enbridge website states that many compounds in crude oil readily evaporate when exposed to air, such as benzene, toluene, and hydrogen sulfide. And then sort of like, end quote, next section, building community or whatever. If you actually like research these chemicals, benzene is a known carcinogen and causes blood disorders and damage to the reproductive and central nervous systems, which are both pretty important, I hear. Toluene also harms reproductive and central nervous systems. Hydrogen sulfide is lethal if inhaled at high concentrations. So these are airborne threats. They can't be contained. We're talking about how dilbit cannot be cleaned up. Well, you really can't freaking clean air. So, in just the past few years, Enbridge has been fined for $7.2 million for nearly 700 environmental infractions, which of course have had an adverse effect on ecologies. The tar sands are, depending on what your better frame of reference is, they're the size of Florida, or the size of Guatemala. You can see them from space. The amount of devastation that is required for the tar sands to exist and to expand is, it's mind-blowing. It's pristine forest that is being hacked down in order to make way for sites of, it's not like once they do the excavation then it's like, okay, well now it's just kind of an open pit and now all we have to worry about is the carbon footprint that leaves behind these atrocious tailings ponds. And as we've seen with Mount Polly just this week, these tailings ponds are disasters waiting to happen. Extraction from the tar sands, depending on which site, requires, first of all, it requires 1 barrel of oil to extract 2 barrels of oil from the tar sands. So people who make the argument that, you know, this is a cost-effective place to get energy are misguided by very successful and very well-funded PR campaigns from the tar sands industry. Yeah.
They're socialized into that.
Pardon me?
They're kind of socialized into believing that.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. And more disturbing from my perspective and from an animal rights perspective is that, so we've got the oil, okay, we know that that's terrible. The extraction process, in order to, so you've got tar. You've got like this nasty, sandpapery peanut butter, and somehow we've got to turn this into like maple syrup. The way you do that is by taking clean drinking water. You can't use dirty water, you can't reuse water that you've already used for the process. Clean drinking water, and basically just like blasting at this stuff until you extract the oil from it. So depending on which company and which extraction site is doing this process, anywhere from 2 to 7 barrels of clean drinking water is contaminated for every 1 barrel of oil. This is, if we want to boil this down to like really basic facts that people can maybe accept on a more tangible level than, you know, carbon footprint or greenhouse gases, if you have to choose between oil and water, I think it's a pretty clear choice. Alberta's Lower Athabasca Regional Plan only protects 11% of the caribou habitat, and scientists have indicated that if tar sands development trends continue, within 30 years the caribou herd on the east side of the Athabasca River will go extinct. The tar sands are expected to kill over 30 million birds in the next 20 years. So, when we're talking about pipelines, one of the reasons why I see them as a very strategic point of intervention in terms of activist attempts at stopping the tar sands is that in order for the tar sands to expand, they need to be able to ship their product. They are doing this with pipelines. Pipelines are literally the arteries that keep the heart of the tar sands alive. If we can sever these arteries, it's a really freaking good strategy for stopping the tar sands dead in their tracks. We need to make it economically not viable for these companies to be sinking these billions of dollars into these projects. And we need to send a really clear message to the institutions and the governments who are allowing this to happen that we will not allow this to happen. I guess the last thing I'll say in closing is that we cannot do good environmentalism without doing Indigenous sovereignty work. The tar sands, extractive industries, all of these things, these are acts of colonial violence, as we've said continuously throughout the day. And environmentalism and sovereignty work are paired. They have to happen together, otherwise we're not working effectively. We need to recognize the links. We need to, those of us who are settlers need to be accountable to the ways in which we participate in the expansion of these industries because we benefit by them and we benefit by the ecocide and the environmental genocide that we are perpetuating. And so anybody, I would say, who's trying to do meaningful anti-pipeline, anti-tar sands work, make sure that you're checking in with the folks whose territories you're doing that work on. Make sure that you are taking cues from folks with the direction that your projects are going. Make sure that you're representing the issue in ways that are actually beneficial for folks whose traditional territories you're on. And and yeah, show up for shit that's not just your own projects. And that's all I have to say about that. Also, if anybody has any questions about the blockade, I'd be more than happy to answer.